All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's 2:37. This is the meeting of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone number 1. We are at City Hall Chambers, 1110 Houston Street. This is the meeting of Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Ms. Rolarte, can you do roll call for us?
Yes. Mr. Mia?
Present.
Mr. Castillo?
Present.
Mr. Navarro?
Present.
Mr. Martinez?
Present.
Mr. Ceballos?
Here.
And Ms. Alexander?
Yeah.
And we do have a quorum today.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the board for being here and the city staff and our consultants and others that are here. Thank you for making time to be here. Item number 3 is a presentation of minutes, and you've got those before you. Whenever you're ready, I'll entertain a motion on those items, on that item of minutes.
On the minutes, I had a comment. Anyway, it was, I don't know exactly where it is, but it's where I give the WebCAD value of a property, and the way it's written, it says that it's listed as, the WebCAD has it listed, so that kind of sounds like it's for sale, but it's not listed, it's just
mentioned,
valued at, right, the WebCAD value is, and I apologize, I don't know, oh, here it is, it's on the second page, it starts with,
yeah,
okay, you found it, yeah.
we'll make the change.
Page 2, paragraph 2.
No, it's down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. Oh, no, you're right. Oh, yeah, you're right, paragraph 2, yeah, it's listed. It's just valued at that on WebCAD.
Any other comments, edits?
Mr. Chairman, if that's the only adjustment that's needed, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes with the adjustment by Ms. Alexander.
Right, it's been moved with an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Castillo. Any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? None, motion passes. We're now at item 4, citizens' comments. Citizens are required to fill out a witness card no later than 2:45. Those can be found here at City Hall. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No more than 3 minutes will be allowed to, no more than 3 persons will be allowed to speak on any side of an issue. Speakers may not pass their minutes to any other speaker. Comments should be relevant to city business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. Anybody here to speak? Make a public comment?
At the moment, we don't have any public comments.
We still have time, so we will keep that open. And we're going to move on to presentation items, discussion on any downtown-related effort or activity of board members' interest or concern. Anybody wish to discuss anything that's not on the agenda for presentation item?
I have something. So looking at our, I know it's going to come up, looking at our projects, but I was driving down Zaragoza to go and look at some of the buildings connected to how they are designed, and I was pulled over into the loading, unloading taxi lane that's on the south side of Zaragoza in that 1200 block, and had my flashers on, and I was peering at the buildings, and a traffic professional came by and banged on my window to tell me that I couldn't be there. So, which is fine, right? I was just sitting there, so I was going to move. But I'm wondering, in that 1200 block, what the language agreement is going to be for loading and unloading for those buildings that are there, or if there is any kind of agreement between the taxis that are there and how they, what, you know, to work that out so that UPS or whoever needs to. So if we, I'm not sure what the agreement is with the taxis, because I know in the plan that they have a designated spot there. So I want to make sure that there's also some loading and unloading capability, because those are retail establishments.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know the answer to that. I think that's probably more in the traffic side of things. But it would be good for our design team to kind of review that, if possible, to see how that's gonna impact. I don't think we're taking on their lanes at all, but I agree, there may be more of a fight to grab a loading zone, right? Since now we're moving up, we're creeping into the street 5 feet at least. So, can you all do that? Anybody have any insight as to that, or Rhea from your side, anything?
Well, I can ask Mr. Chairman, the traffic parking division to go take a look at it. Maybe we can assign one of the spots for loading, unloading zone.
I know there's a system because UPS usually parks in one location and then they just dolly the
Yeah.
boxes, so they don't move once they park. And then if there's any pickup or delivery, usually it's in the evening when they do that.
The taxi agreement would be in place somewhere, I would think, in the traffic department, right? All right, good to look at that. Anything else? Anything new?
I do have something I would like to bring the traffic department, maybe the next meeting as a presentation, because I was told that still waiting for some of the signal design, but a lot of this signal, we need to take it down because we don't have really traffic anymore. And so we have to upgrade all the signal with new conduit. It's not worth it because each signal is about $250,000. If the signal light is no longer needed, we'd rather take it down. And so I want to have Robert come in and make a presentation, and just to have the board aware of, because I hate to spend $5-7 million upgrading the signal, which not needed anymore.
When you say signal, you mean completely removing it and
Yes.
clearing the stop?
Putting up a stop sign.
Which,
Putting up the stop sign?
Depending on
signal?
what the
Lot of those
Studies.
traffic lights are no longer warranted because we don't have the traffic anymore. And those signals are
I think
30, 40-year-old.
They don't.
Now we have to upgrade all those signals with new technology. But the thing is, if we don't need it, why even spend all the money? You take it down, just put a stop sign.
Based on a traffic, I assume a
Yes.
traffic study.
And so I will, if board agrees, I'll have maybe Robert come next board meetings and make a presentation, see this is what we see.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be a good thing.
And what he was asking for was the specs for the light poles, because he knows that you're going with a certain spec, but he hasn't received that, so he can start ordering. So I don't know if Able City is able to get him the spec so he can start ordering those light poles.
All right.
I've been looking at that Zaragoza design, and I know we're gonna see the plan, but those 2 blocks that we're doing on Zaragoza, you know, I know it's expensive to bury lines, but it's such a mess. The 2 blocks, actually, if we included the 3 blocks so that we included the entrance for 10,000 pedestrians a day, I think it is, to the United States of America, it would be 3 blocks. But it would really improve, if we could, I don't know how to make that happen, but that the electrical people, I don't know what it is, electrical, telephone, cable,
Probably all of it.
it's a big mess. It's not aesthetically pleasing. It looks like a kindergartner did the wiring up there. Maybe we could invite them to talk about, and of course, I'd like to see the image, you know, of the 1200 block of Zaragoza. I don't know if y'all can make that happen. Not today, but.
So I think when we get to that item, we can talk about that. We don't lose anything in pricing stuff. It's gonna be an exercise and it's gonna take work. But if we really want to learn what it costs to go underground, I'm sure, we can get to that number by asking the folks that do that work. I would think everything's proprietary, correct? Pretty much? Yeah. All right, so that's,
Meaning that each utility company owns whatever
That's
they
correct.
have on those poles.
Yeah, and I think they would have a unit cost per linear
Oh.
foot, although we talked about this while we were touring Zaragoza, was that you have, I think it was Ms. Martinez that was saying, they went a short distance, but it was complicated, right, for that project downtown, so I think some things can quickly get complicated. It's not just linear footage, you know.
And maybe the money that we save from replacing traffic lights, we could allocate to burying at least those 3 blocks to get started. Because it's better to see the image of the lines, because there's, I don't know, there's 20 feet, 30 feet extra that's just wrapped around the pole, hanging down, and then somebody else puts another 20 or 30 feet extra that's just wrapped around and hanging down, and it's aesthetically displeasing.
Yeah, so we can talk some more on when we get to that street. Anything else that y'all want to note? Underground traffic signal and the taxi agreement and related load zones. So we'll let them, Mr. Mia, if you can confirm their availability, we'll let them on the agenda for the next meeting, traffic department.
Yes, they will be here. Ina, just remind me, I'll have Robert.
Yes, yes, we will.
All right, thank you very much for that discussion. We're going to move on to action items. We have several. The first one is obviously relating to this grant proposal that's due next week, and I haven't started it, but I do have the application. Doesn't seem that complicated. I asked Able City to lead in a conceptual of, based on our discussion, we agreed that Salinas, last month, or last meeting, we agreed that Salinas was, a target for potential upgrades to walkability in that area. So I asked them to create an exhibit that could help the board take this discussion further, and then 2 things: show us in an exhibit the location, and then talk through some bucket costs that could be integrated into a proposal. So I appreciate you all doing this in very short time. It's all conceptual, and
Will you describe what's happening? We're
Yeah.
looking at a conceptual something of,
yeah. So last time we asked that we come back with some sort of exhibit that shows us Salinas Street and some perspective improvements to it that could match the type of funding that this grant affords, which is basically what we're doing: surface improvements, walkability improvements. So that's what this is, and they put some identifiers for you. I mean, of course, all of us know where we are, but the exhibit will run us through Salinas Street and kind of talk through what some potential projects would look like. Sidewalk projects, lighting projects, tree planting projects, the same things that we're doing in our existing, our projects that are in design. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we just have a real brief presentation to kind of talk about some of these items. I know when we met last time, we talked about Salinas from Victoria all the way to Water Street. And you can kind of see the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks, right, from north to south. We've identified the major components, the federal court, the post office, old federal building, Jarvis Plaza, the metro station, and then the International Bridge. I think we all sort of agreed that the last 2 blocks from Grant to Water Street were kind of the ones we wanted to focus on. We know we have limited budget to work on these. And so we tried to kind of come up with some ideas as far as how we would proceed with doing that. So up here at the top, you see Grant to Zaragoza to Water Street. And really what we're looking at here is identifying along Water Street. This kind of needs to be shown a little bit better, but we know the pedestrians kind of come across this way, and then, or even actually on the other side as well. We're looking at the possibility of working on both sides of the street. I know the streets are very narrow, but similar to what was done on Iturbide, where they kind of zigzag a little bit to be able to get some activity on both sides of the street. We feel like ultimately that's going to be the better way to go as far as for trees and things of that nature for creating a walkable environment. We think that coming down the street, now I did consult with KCI about ADA and all of those components, and our understanding that if the sidewalk is following the back of curb and if the back of curb is following the street, then that sidewalk doesn't necessarily need to be ADA compliant unless we choose to want to do that. So there is a steep grade from Zaragoza down to Water Street. The good news is that we don't have to do a lot of ramping per se. I think the example that I was given, it's kind of like San Francisco. You know, they have streets that are at 20% slope and the sidewalks all function as best they can. So from that standpoint, unless we choose to do something more substantial, the cost to do some of this work would probably be in line with some of the other blocks, maybe a little bit more. We did talk about possibly, right now at the end of Water Street, where the turn into the outlet shop, there's probably a better way to dress that up a little bit. If you know that there's a crosswalk from El Portal over to the bridge, that there's a little bit of a raised walkway almost, and that we would propose to do something similar here, so that any pedestrian traffic coming down on either side of the street or along the front of the outlet shops would have that raised protected area. It just forces people to slow down a little bit as people are walking across
Like
there.
a speed table?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So focusing on these two blocks, you know, we've been kind of talking about costs, you know. I think, and currently KCI is working on their cost estimates for the other blocks. As we're working through some of those, we're sort of in that, what you would say it were like 150, 175 range. Was that for one side, for both sides, or?
That was for one side, one of the ones we're working on.
Yeah, so, you know, we're probably looking at about $300,000 per block for both sides. Right now, maybe a little bit more for the Water Street, Zaragoza block, but, you know, depending on how much budget we have, that would sort of say, well, how many blocks can we do with this grant? Just moving forward, if you can see on, you know, from Lincoln.
But that $300,000 with ADA compliance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because since it's a grant, we have to comply with ADA, it's federal money.
Yeah, no, everything that we're doing is ADA compliant. In fact, there's Edward was telling me that there's something called the PRO-WAG, which is the Public Right-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines. PRO-WAG, yeah. And so they're slightly different than the ADAC guidelines that as architects we follow because it's more related to public right-of-way. And there's a little bit more leniency there in the sense of, like I mentioned, with the sidewalks in the back of curb. I mean, they understand that roads are not ADA compliant, right? But as long as we maintain those guidelines, then we should be okay from an ADA perspective. As we march down the street, you know, we try to get parking on both sides to be able to get trees on both sides. We think that's very important to create the walkable view. Again, we bypassed the Metro and the Plaza. You know, we talked about maybe not doing so much on this block here, but maybe from Victoria to Houston Street, you know, we can maybe get some more sidewalk and trees along that sidewalk as well. So we've developed these very schematically. I think it was more to kind of give you an idea of what can be done. If we need to throw some cost to it, like I mentioned, we can basically just per block just say this is what we think it would cost and ultimately what the total price would be for this. And we can do that real quick. So we just want to make sure that if anyone has any comments, if this.
Can you go to that last block, or is that it?
I think that's it, yeah.
Okay.
So I think we covered 1, 2, 3, 4, fives.
Okay, yes, I see it.
Yeah.
It's for the board to discuss and eventually to an action item here is to, you heard 300,000, so you're really looking at 3 blocks. So that would be the, you know, what we'd be deciding what the proposal would say in terms of which blocks we'd be looking at.
We're gonna follow the same pattern that we're doing on Zaragoza, right? Continue, so it's,
The good
Except
thing-
on Zaragoza.
No,
Zaragoza.
Zaragoza's the outlier, no.
Zaragoza, when we started this TERS board, it was to connect some of the anchor areas that are in downtown, including the cathedral, La Posada, the Webb County Heritage Museum, and the outlet mall. And that connector there is Zaragoza. And what we ended up with is I know it's complicated. Zaragoza is it's a complicated project. But what we ended up with was 2 little blocks on Zaragoza on one side of the street. So instead of, and I'm not sure what happened to the monument, I didn't see it on the plans here. The monument that was supposed to be at Santa Ursula in Zaragoza, I'm not sure if that went away or.
No, I believe it's still there.
Okay, so on this, I didn't see it, you know, it's grayed out, but, so we have, whatever, 6 blocks on Iturbide, 2 blocks San Agustin, and one side of the street on Zaragoza. And that Zaragoza is an important street in downtown. And so I know Salinas is also an important street, but when I'm looking at 6 blocks of Salinas, when I know that Zaragoza is still in great need, it connects 2 international bridges to our downtown and multiple anchors that have invested millions and millions and millions of dollars, and we're still not looking at Zaragoza. And so I just wanted to make that clear, right, that we can't just forget about Zaragoza and go down Salinas, even though I might have been the one that might have suggested Salinas because the courthouse to the outlet malls. But Zaragoza is you know, we need to not forget about that Zaragoza is in great need, and we're only doing 2 blocks, one side of the street. And it's got tremendous anchors on it that have invested multi-millions of dollars in our downtown. And they're working. I mean, they're open and functioning.
Well, it's up to this board to decide where this grant would seek as a project, right? So part of it is the presentation on Salinas based on our discussion. If something needs to change, this board can change that. I think we need to get started on Salinas. The grant probably won't see any activity off of this grant, probably for a year based on the timelines that have been discussed. So what would the board like to do? I can give you if we want to start, I can start. I think we need to work on the first couple of blocks off the bridge, off the Portal. Those are extremely important. And both, can you go to that block, Rick?
Yeah.
I think it's the first 2.
These 2.
Yeah, I think those are for sure, you know, in terrible condition from a walkability standpoint.
yes.
So that, beyond that, I think, you know, we can pick, the board can decide, you know.
I mean, the grant is for what, $1 million?
It's for sidewalks, trees.
About $1 million.
Yeah, for $1 million, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
$1 million. And
Yeah, so we would match
put
20% match.
20%.
Yeah.
Well, we need to go for it.
So that's my say in terms of, I think those are priority. I've seen and I'm pointing here, but on the left, top left, there's some really terrible, you know, there's like a walkway that has it's very unsafe. And then unsafe walking down to where CVB is.
Water
too.
Street.
Yeah, Water Street. So that's you know, the rest, you know, you're certainly welcome to chime in, board members.
May I add an
Sure.
observation? So, this grant can be helpful in this area where the four corners of Zaragoza and Salinas Street meet. And if we're given a little bit of latitude to go in, you know.
Towards the
connect it-
outlet shop?
To get to that first entry to the outlet shop, that might be at least helpful in connecting Zaragoza Street and looking at some of the issues that Carol,
Right.
Mrs. Alexander brings up. That's an observation I just wanted to add.
Ah, that makes sense. I think the south side, southwest side needs work for sure, that one. I think the other one's a little better, but that needs work. Does anybody else have any?
The southeast side of, is this Zaragoza and Salinas?
Zaragoza and Salinas, yeah.
The
That side,
south- the southwest side, right here.
southwest,
It's almost impassable.
right.
There's a big
Oh,
transformer
yeah,
box.
yes,
and
yes. I
poles
took
and
movies of
things like that.
people trying to
Yeah,
get
I
to
mean-
the, yeah.
They did one side there, but I mean, you look at the other side of Salinas, it's just as bad, you know, so,
Yeah, this side here,
right.
down this way.
It is potentially possible to look at, instead of this just being a sidewalk, but to raise the floor and or raise the street to the edge of the back of curb, or to the front of curb, and, you know, have this crosswalk connect, and the whole thing becomes walkable at that point.
I mean, the other thing we could do, it's maybe risky on the grant proposal, is to be open about and transparent about us trying to do as much as possible within certain blocks. Because I like the extension of that intersection work to clean that all up. But, you know, the grant reviewers are gonna wanna know which ones, we can prioritize them and say, you know, we're gonna try to do as much as, but we do need to have some priority over what we would do. The block that's near the courthouse on the where the St. Anthony and the other, the beer garden is, that's also in terrible shape.
This block here.
Yeah, so that needs, and there's activity there, right? So there's our economic development, you know. So that's another priority. For me, that's another priority. I don't want to take up the preferences myself, but I mean, take your pick.
Yeah, it seems like, as a board, we've met for so long, and some of the projects are so complicated that they're expensive. But if we could, as a board, agree to just enhance maybe the aesthetic appeal of our pedestrian entry from the south to that one block, you know, just do something, because when you walk there now, it's, you know, you can Google Earth other entries, you know, international entries, and ours needs a little TLC, right? It doesn't seem like it would be, if we're not doing, you know, if we could do some lighting or some trees or something, bury the lines, something so that when people take pictures there, it's the entrance to the United States of America in Laredo, Texas. And now people aren't going there to take pictures because it's not interesting right now, and it's not aesthetically appealing. And we have great talented artists in our city. If we could allocate some money to that block somehow. I know when they painted the Serape, I think it was, on the street, we had great, our traffic department or whoever required that they do it in survey paint, so it lasted about, I don't know, a month, 2 months. And instead of letting them paint it on the street for some reason, for some unknown reason, somebody hates art and didn't want the paint to have a longevity. But if we could do something interesting and fun for our city, I would like to see that, at least in that one block. Not tearing up a sidewalk, but you all that have great ideas.
This particular grant probably wouldn't allow that for that, But, you know, because this is kind of mobility, walkability, it would probably take some improvements instead of, it does allow for streetscaping, including paint, but not on its own from what I understand.
Could we possibly remove the parking that's on the west side? And then
This parking here?
the parking all the way down? Because it's double parking on both sides, so you have that narrow. And so you don't get a good sidewalk on one side, you don't get a good sidewalk on the other side. But if we remove the west side parking, extend it out the east side sidewalk,
Try and make it
did I
bigger.
say that right?
Yeah.
At least we're gonna get one side of the street with a nice wide sidewalk that people can walk from Jarvis Plaza or the El Metro straight down Salinas to cross into Mexico and give them a nicer walking way. Than to try to do two little sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah.
You know, it just, we have to make space somewhere.
He's gonna pull up each data to show you how it works there, because, what can happen is there's parking on one side, and then there's no parking on that other side, and then there's parking on the other side. So that
Alternates.
it alternates, so
Oh.
so it doesn't load the parking on one side, and it doesn't, hamper the business on the other side, so it's kind of like.
But you're able to get more sidewalk on both sides,
And-
like you're saying.
And shade.
Right.
And shade.
If you see, that's the condition.
So there's a little trick that they did here in that the little inset is actually about 5 feet wide as opposed to a typical 8-foot wide. And so when you park a car here, the car sticks out just a little bit into the roadway. But because there's no parking on this side, the vehicles are able to maneuver past that without any issue.
How wide is that sidewalk
On this side
on the
here,
right side, yes?
8, 10 feet, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If
Yeah.
we can get something like 10 feet.
Yeah.
But Iturbide is a large street. No, it's a wide street.
Well, it narrows down
No, it narrows down in this
here.
part.
And because on Salinas, we have about 24 feet right now from curb to curb, more or less.
24 feet. And on Zaragoza, what is it? Do you know?
Saragossa, I think, is, what do we have? It's like,
I thought it was 27.
yeah, I think it's about 20, it's a little bit bigger, actually. Yeah, that's why we tried to, on Saragossa, we only had the parking on one side because we wanted to expand the sidewalk because we needed that space to be able to do all the maneuvering. In these areas where it's generally fairly flat, we can do a lot more with the sidewalks there.
Where are the power lines on this street?
They're not,
They're not,
they're buried.
They're somewhere.
No,
I know.
They're buried. And so can you go to the bridge where they're there.
that,
You can see them right
that
there.
was the first project city did about 15, 20 years ago with a $1.5 million EDA grant.
And that's,
it was unfortunately longer than that.
Yeah.
But Rick, can you go to that, I think it's the 1100 block of Zaragoza.
yes.
It's the bridge. It's where the bridge, well, it's the pedestrian.
Here.
Yeah, well, that's Salinas, but down, I'm talking about where this is,
Oh, on Convent?
well, yeah,
Or-
east of
I
Convent.
got you.
I think it's 1100. There. And then if you turn it around, look the other way. There. And so this is the aesthetic appeal from La Posada to the mall. And we're gonna put a gazillion dollars there, and we still have that bird's nest stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the reality we're facing here. You know, if we divert money to get things underground, we will use up most of our grant money for that. It's just, that's just the way that goes.
And can we do that? Can we use the grant for that? Or
Not this grant.
Not this grant?
Well, actually, I think I asked Mr. Mendiva that question. He said yes, but there needs to be some justification over the walkability, not so much the
Oh.
aesthetics, so. That's specifically a, a tech dot grant. It's not even a grant, it's a reimbursement program.
So this is the area where we talked about making that improvement that Viviana mentioned, maybe getting rid of this parking here and extending that sidewalk out and having the crosswalk come across this way as opposed to on an angle.
Right.
And then you're getting away from this pole and this, for the signal light.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. So those are 3 parking spaces right there, where the white van is?
Yes.
Oh, is it 2? 1 or 2?
Yeah. It's beautiful parking for a truck.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so you'd pull this sidewalk?
Yeah, see this sidewalk right here? We would pull that all the way down and around the corner over here like that. And so this would be at that same elevation as that.
So we move forward with this item. We agree on prioritizing the areas. I see, I'm reading the room here, a consensus over that intersection of Salinas and Zaragoza, right? That four corners.
Well, I think this corner's okay, other than maybe modifying this curb ramp, but for sure, this section here and then down the street on both sides.
But in terms of the exhibit, we would still name it as the,
Yes,
in the entire intersection.
absolutely.
Are we okay to support improvements going down to water as a priority? I'm just trying to craft an item that we all can move on so we can.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Let's say we decide on this corner. I mean, how soon can we start working on this corner?
And the reason I'm smiling or laughing, whatever, is because Mr. Mia's already warned me that this grant will take a couple of years. I think we heard from Ramon last time, it'll be about 2 years.
2 years.
18 months to 2 years before we see the actual funding and the authorization to move on the project, so.
Which means, to
2
answer
years ago,
my,
the grant we received, we just selecting the engineer.
so why are we choosing this corner then?
So that-
We gotta wait 2
Oh, to
years
write
to
the grant,
work
right.
on this?
Write it.
Is that what you're saying?
But to write it, is that what he's
Guys,
saying?
did you hear that?
Yes, to dedicate, yeah.
Do you hear that? If we select this corner, we gotta wait 2 years so we can start doing improvements on this. I thought this is priority, that we wanna work, along Zaragoza, and we gotta start somewhere, guys.
Other than that is to allocate existing TERS escrow monies to that, which we have an option to do as well, and to accelerate that, right? This is leveraging us 80% of our monies, the grant.
But we don't have to choose this corner.
Well, we have to
What about
present-
2 years from now, where are we gonna be as far as improvements? And then we can use the monies for that.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like,
the reason we want to be competitive in our proposal, we want to give the reviewer an indication of what our project's gonna look like, right? So we have to make some sort of selection because $1 million is not gonna cover us 9 blocks. So we have to create some targets so the reviewers can score us. I understand, so one other option, which is if we want to bring this back to allocate existing source money revenue, if it rises to that priority, you can do that. We can do that and accelerate it.
I think that option we always have.
Yes.
Why not submit the grant? If we don't get it, then we can come back and, because it's not a guarantee that we will get the grant.
Correct.
I understand about submitting the grant, but what you want to say specifically is to work at the intersection of Zaragoza and Water?
Yes, so I'm saying as one project, right, and then we may add some others, so that we can say our $1 million request is gonna look at these areas, so it's clear, right, to the reviewers, this is what they're gonna do.
but are we stuck with that location or can we, so we're gonna have 3 options? You follow what I'm saying? Like, okay, let's say we get approved, do we have to wait 2 years until?
Well, if we accelerate it and do it ourselves without this grant, we would ask them to consider another location to get.
Oh, okay, so that's my question, okay.
Yeah.
good.
I mean, we'll show them the whole exhibit and say, these are the tentative projects in priority. Project 1, 2, 3, and that's
Okay,
100,
gotcha.
that's $1 million
Gotcha.
plus the match.
So we would, the exhibit would be the overview, and then we would say, project 1 would be from Water Street to Lincoln, and there's a price tag for that.
Okay.
And then whatever other blocks you want. And ultimately, at the end, we'll have a summary that says these 3 projects equal $1 million.
1.2 or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
So besides that, might added the third one, which is by the courthouse, because I think that is pretty messy there. That's, and more, on the west side. There's activity there, I think we ought to improve that. If y'all have any other, so I would say for me,
The federal courthouse?
where the St. Anthony abandoned hotel and the beer garden and the Mao One, I think that needs improvement. That could use,
We are looking at the federal courthouse, we do have an architect, so they are looking at the whole thing, inside and outside also.
so what we saw there is there's plenty of walkability potential. If you go to the court, that's the area I'm talking about on the left. That area,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
No, I'm
in
sorry.
that block. But when you get to the courthouse in the next block, if your architect can give us some more
No,
space.
no, I'm sorry, we're looking at the old post office.
This block over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not that.
okay, that's you, okay.
But I mean, I think we all feel like this is pretty walkable.
Yes.
Right now. So I don't think there's much effort that we need to do through here.
In the next block, the same thing, it's very walkable. The plaza, this has like an 8-foot.
Yeah.
Can you take us all the way down just so the board can see that?
Bottlenecks right in.
That's still very walkable there in the transit center.
Right.
And once you get past that, it really, it snowballs into bad conditions, but
And
there's some.
here's where we would want to propose to do, like on Iturbide, where you have a little bit of parking on this side and a little bit of parking with some trees on both sides, so that as you're walking down this, you have this canopy of trees going down.
So the other, since you mentioned EDA, I mean, that's the discussion that this board has had in the past to put together an EDA proposal as well. There was another project the city went after, I think that's been funded. I think next year we ought to look at an EDA grant for, in this case, we can make it entirely utility related. Yeah, once you get to that block, I think that's Iturbide, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those are the, I think in my eyes, the 2 blocks that are the worst from Iturbide to Water.
Yeah, I'd agree.
These right here. And you have this rail up here.
So there, it's almost like you would be doing what you're doing on Zaragoza, right? You bump out 5 foot.
Exactly.
Edward, it's mine, I'm designing now, Edward.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah, obviously we'd have to fix that. That does not comply here.
This is for the skateboarders, it's a recreational
I would love it, yeah.
aspect of this.
Nothing looks as bad as when you get between Zaragoza right here,
This.
and you turn south. Right, this way. This is the designated, identified pedestrian walkway,
This right here.
right here. And if you zoom into that, like you can't, this is,
All right,
You gotta walk on the road.
Yeah.
from looking
yeah, they
at
walk
that.
on the road. And there's strollers and suitcases and wheelchairs and then, it's steep.
but see, so really it's half a block of that one, really, right, on one side, because that's pretty neat right there already, that's nice.
Yeah.
On the other side.
And what we're saying is that right in this corner, we would open this up a little bit and try to get this part to kind of look the same. So that's all one walk area that takes you back towards the outlets.
Yeah. So does somebody want to, I'll entertain a motion. Does somebody want to take us through what they think will get us to at least $1 million in our grant submission? Or would you all like me to verbalize that?
It has to do with, a lot with technology also, doesn't it? So where do we tie in the technology into this? I'm looking at it from a sidewalk, kind of pedestrian walking, but what's the technology that we're creating to go along with this? You have any ideas? Or when I say technology,
Well,
is
the
it
wayfinding
lighting?
should be in place.
Yeah, no, we definitely, that's all included, so like lighting, the landscaping, whatever it is that we want.
Their model that they're working to finalize now, that would be what we would bring to this side.
And we have to
And
incorporate
it's
the,
300,000 per block, more or
Give and
less,
take, give or take.
more or less than more.
yeah. And anything we do, we have to incorporate camera
Right.
Yeah.
for the security, so police can,
Oh,
So there's a lot of extra signalization, tough word for me, that I think is on those corners right there that, I mean, there's, that I think there, once we talk to Robert with the traffic department, we'll be able to see if they're actually necessary, especially on the four corners of that Salinas and Zaragoza.
Right.
Going south, there's just a lot. There's if you go there, I think there's 3 light posts there. So they can, either we can put 2 into 1 or, take the extra ones out.
Yeah,
That would help.
Rick, can you put the first exhibit with the blocks? So can I just indulge me on a motion to prioritize Water Street to Iturbide on both sides and the internet section of Zaragoza and Salinas? And then as a priority to the Victoria to Houston east side or block. Not east side, west side would be what I'm talking about. That would be like, if we were to entertain a motion, do you all feel that's a good priority?
that would be 3 blocks,
It would
right?
be actually 4 blocks.
blocks.
Try to
4
squeeze in 4 blocks.
Okay.
2 in the south, 2 in the north.
Well,
I'd like-
3, it's actually 3 in the south and 1 in the north.
Oh, gotcha.
I'd like to see water to It Street down Salinas, and then Salinas to Santa Ursula down Zaragoza. The other side of the street on Zaragoza.
To Convent?
Well, all the way to Santa Ursula, with the mall's down there, I mean, the museum is down there. And there's a
this-
lot of activity in Casa
This is
Ortiz.
for the $1 million. We won't even get to the hotel. This is only, we're only encapsulating $1 million request. So if we take Salinas to Santa Ursula, that's like 5 blocks.
Well, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not imagining what the cost is. What I'm saying is that that's the priority that I believe is where the grant should be. The priority is It Street to water down Salinas, and Salinas to Santa Ursula down Zaragoza. That's what we should be improving, the walkability there, because that's where a lot of pedestrian traffic is. That's where there's already proven anchors in downtown Laredo. They've spent millions of dollars, and we don't provide them adequate
I
sidewalks.
don't disagree with that, but
So-
if we're gonna make a motion to decide on the projects that could be done with $1 million, we have to size it down to that scope. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, I don't disagree, we should take it all the way to
So that
Zaragoza.
would be for just the grant.
Just this grant,
Right.
And we also, this is a separate project that we're doing with other monies.
well, part of it, right?
We're not doing the
Zaragoza.
south side we're not doing the south side of Zaragoza, none of it.
So Carol, just, so in what we're designing right now, we do have this monument here on this corner
Okay,
that we're looking at. And Edward's got some fee to help us engineer the civil and the electrical and all of that stuff
okay.
for this corner. I think that from a walkability perspective, this block I think is okay. I mean, it could be cleaned up a little bit. And then once you get to the cathedral,
That's actually, sorry, Rick, that whole section is actually phase two of our original planning.
this section.
Yeah, because we wanted to include that in phase one. We didn't. We carved it out and said that needs to become phase two, right?
But it didn't look bad.
Well, that's been improved recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Public Works went and did this.
But it doesn't have, I mean, you know, it doesn't have the lighting, and
Right,
it doesn't have,
Yes.
it doesn't have the benches, and it doesn't have appeal. So we're not talking $1 million, right? I mean, it's not gonna take $1 million to do a little, touch-up there so that it's attractive. But, and the reason, what's happening, Jose, Mr. Ceballos, is that, this first plan, you know, the reason I'm putting it all out there now is because it didn't happen here. And so I'm advocating for Zaragoza Street and the anchors that are along that walkable area, because, and when there was another planner here before you,
But
his
Carol, that's not
rationale
too
was
much-
put
that's
them.
not too much money to do benches, those things. If the board agrees to buy it, I can have parts go and install it.
Yes, so that's, but so that's, my point is to make the motion for the whole area, right? So that it doesn't get left out like it did this last time. And so, I mean, you write the grant the way you have your experience to do, but if we include the whole area, that's where we can start, and then we can start going north and south.
But that needs to be separate because item is posted just for the grant. So we need to stick to this one. What you're suggesting, maybe we can put it an item next meeting and we can vote on it. Because this is strictly to submit the grant, so we need to
Yeah,
define the
Yeah,
grant
it's like
and the dollar.
you're adding two things to.
No, I'm talking about the grant. I'm saying the grant should be, here, the grant should be, in my opinion, the grant should be should include its street to water down Salinas, and then it should go from Salinas east, down Zaragoza.
There's not enough funding to achieve them the way we would design them. That's the point. So we have to,
You've already designed them?
well, I mean, the conceptual design. So I'm all for deciding to do.
I'm just,
other
what
places,
I'm saying
but-
is that if we go all the way down Salinas to the courthouse, with $1 million, yes, we're doing some improvements, but we're leaving out something that's in great need. And so,
But
I mean,
also,
make the
Mr.
motion the way
Chairman, I need to advise, these grants comes with the language, any cost overrun is TERS. So if we want to apply for a bigger pot, which we know we can build it, we're gonna eat the cost. So I will cautious, we just stick to what we can build. If it's 300,000 per block, we just stick to
Yeah.
3 block. And because the cost every day is going up, because if we go 6 block, guess what? We are pitching it another $1 million.
Yeah, okay, or else, the exercises you have, what I said with Iturbide to water, right, that's 3 blocks, that's 900,000. And then adding the 1 block we're gonna have to somehow work that through with the design, right? We won't get everything we want, but to make $1 million work.
Do we have something for Zaragoza that includes benches and stuff like that? Do we have a layout or way of getting a cost of what that would cost? Because we probably could take care of that on our own without having to worry about the grant.
Yeah, which is what was discussed earlier, right? If we want to, Mr. Martinez was saying, if we want to entertain that now, we can. We just have to put it on the agenda and discuss it. And we've been here before, right? So the decision we have to make is whether we want to bond again or whether we're just going to eat up our cash, right? That when we start discussing phase 2 projects. What I'm trying to be clear about is that the grant proposal requires that we identify the general scope of the project. And if we expand it, we need to be prepared to say, what are we expanding exactly so that the conceptual design can match that.
I mean, I think it's duly noted that we can't forget Zaragoza. I mean, but for this particular grant, I agree that we should do Iturbide to water and then the 3 blocks and then the 1 block on the north side. But
Make a
keep in
motion.
mind, so I'd make that motion, and then that we do the 3 blocks and the 1 in the north, but obviously keep in mind that we have to continue improving Zaragoza, and whenever we get a chance, you know, whether it's a block at a time or whatever, but let's keep it moving, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Is there a second?
I second the
Been
motion.
seconded by Mr. Martinez. Any additional discussion? There being none, all those in favor
Can
say
you
aye.
read the motion, please?
You want to repeat the motion?
The motion was to, I guess, Able City, if you could work with the three blocks on the south side of Salinas from Iturbide to Water Street, then include also the block from Victoria to Houston, in a total of four blocks, to work on the improvements for that section. And
To work
use-
on the grant,
Yes.
On the grant.
The
On
grant.
the grant,
proposal.
We're not gonna get a high score because you're not connecting. You're just doing 1 block here and 3.
Well, I mean, that's true too, so, if we were to
Very
have to
good.
cut back, I would say that we focus on the south side. So I would do it as amended.
All right, can you amend to include, would you consider amending to include the full intersection at Zaragoza and Salinas? As we talked, the 4 corners?
Yeah,
Would you
so
consider
3
that?
block plus Zaragoza Salinas.
Plus the corner.
intersection.
The corner.
As amended.
It's been moved and seconded with the amendment. Any additional discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. We actually, in order, we probably should have an action that establishes the match.
To do this section.
I'll make the motion that, consistent with the prior action, that the board acknowledge that this is requiring a 20% match and that it is authorizing that to be provided in writing to the MPO.
Will you please repeat that? You're talking about what the TERS responsibility is connected to this grant?
So the TERS would have responsibility to.
Are we did we already pass the motion for the grant, and then now we're talking about the fiscal responsibility of it? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, we passed the action. I would like to establish that there is a match requirement on the record, so that's the motion that I'm making. That the TERS, the motion would be that we acknowledge and commit the 20% match from existing revenue or future existing revenue if this is delayed in the award or in its implementation to meet the 20% of the $1 million request.
So moved.
All right, I moved, Mr. Navarro, so you second?
Second, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Navarro seconds. Any discussion?
No, can you repeat that again, please? So I'm sorry, I'm not new, I'm not a professional board member, but we passed the motion to
Establish the project.
establish the project without discussing the financial commitment from the TERS. We passed this without discussing the financial commitment.
We are discussing it now. We
Right, but it's
discussed-
already passed, right? It's already been passed, so now we're discussing the financial commitment.
Yes, it's in order that we discuss it. We also discussed it at the last meeting
Yes.
that it would require it. So yes, it's in order for us to discuss it and commit it.
We have
This
to
is-
know what the
this is
project is
discussion.
before we can
Yes.
Yeah.
put the money.
This is discussion, so. All right, any additional comments or
It was a
discussion?
20% match once we get awarded.
Correct. All right, any additional?
They put the 80%, we put 20%.
Correct.
But there is no commitment if we're not tying up any money if we don't get the grant.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. Thank you very much. We're moving on to the next item, update presentation and discussion with possible action related to TERS number 1, ongoing improvement design work and elements as may be required by the design team. So this is a general update of where the design team is, I believe they're close to 30% or at 30%, which was a threshold for us to consider going to the public with a, I guess, awareness information session. Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've been working with KCI, getting all this worked out. I think we made a lot of headway, and I think we're pretty much ready to proceed with engaging the community with some output. We've been discussing a little bit, we did have a discussion with some property owners along Iturbide, and we did meet with the property owner here on Zaragoza Street as well. There's some conversations about some little details about how these ultimately are going to work, but we feel like it's far enough along that we can have a good conversation to get good feedback from. So what we have here along Zaragoza Street, the parking area, I mean, pretty much hasn't changed too much from the last time that we presented. We are showing now the little flare-outs around the corners. As you can see, here's one. Actually, you've already done that flare-out on this side, so we've already included that in our design.
So we won't have to pay you again unless you do the other design.
We got a free one from Edward.
Oh, Edward too, so you already in-kinding Edward's work.
Yeah, Edward's been a great help, a great asset to the team, so. Along from Zaragoza, from Convent to Flores, again, we're not doing many improvements there. It's mostly gonna be lighting, electrical. We're adding some trees to kind of help flesh some of those entrances out where the people are coming from the bridge. We are making some repairs right on the pavement, the existing pavement. There's some areas where the bricks are kind of in not great shape, so we're going to make those repairs as well. And these are just the renderings. We've been going back and forth. Again, these are based on where we're at right now. We're still working through these, but we'll be presenting these at the community event to get feedback from all the property owners on that in this area. Again, some more images that we've been showing before. Along Iturbide, we're showing now the parking on the north side. And we did that because if you can see on this bottom exhibit, it keeps this access through straight as opposed to before it was kind of doing this little odd turn. Plus the property owners did indicate that they prefer to have the sidewalk on their side as opposed to the parking on their side, so they prefer to keep the parking on the other side. We're showing the location of the monument. We've worked through this area of the Oeta drop-off pavilion, or whatever you want to call it. So we've worked through this section of the property out. Again, the way that monument would look along Iturbide. We think that works well, and it also gets it away from the power lines as well.
That's cool.
And it's sort of pointing you in that direction.
With every single concept that folks.
Yes, no, this is like this is like everyone got a little bit of something, so we tried to please everyone.
So that's the final sign that we're gonna put?
Yeah. Well, actually, we have the alternates basically in case the pricing comes back.
Okay.
Yeah. And this sort of shows you some of the elements that we're working with.
How tall after
42 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's 10 foot above the light poles,
Yes.
roughly, right?
Yeah. So again, further down Iturbide, this is now from San Agustin from San Bernardo to San Agustin. Again, we're going kind of back and forth. This very wide street, so we're able to get parking on both sides. And you can see the little flare-outs with the trees, and I mean, all of this is really coming together really well. We're real happy with where we're at. From San Agustin to Flores, right? Again, same concept, pushing out the sidewalks. We have gotten some indication from some property owners that they might not want to have parking in front, that they'd rather have more sidewalk, which is fine. We can do that. They can then, if they have a restaurant or something, they can then push out a little bit into the sidewalk. Then this is Iturbide, from Flores to Convent. All we're doing here is cosmetic repairs. There's a lot of sidewalk areas that are broken. The trees have grown and pushed the sidewalk, so we're doing the repairs in those areas. Same thing on from Salinas to Convent.
Do you have a count for trees, more or less, or?
Not yet, we will get that though. Right now, we're proposing, and I don't know if this, we can talk about this now, but we're proposing a couple of dates, and I just spoke to Dr. Uribe from Laredo Main Street about kind of helping us navigate this, but we'd like to split up the Zaragoza street improvements and the Iturbide and San Agustin street improvements into two separate groups. We feel like they both are facing very different issues, and that way we give each group enough time to make sure that they feel like they're heard. These dates are tentative. We're still kind of working through that. Obviously, we want to check with the board to see if you guys are available as well. So this is sort of negotiable, right, these dates. We just wanted to put them out there as far as proposed meeting dates. I think that's it for our presentation. If anyone has any questions, KCI and is here to
Chairman,
address
if I
them.
may.
Mr. Villa?
Are those the tree, or we just using the planters to plant? We planting physically tree, or we using the planters?
On which ones, I guess?
And the Zaragoza,
Whole
Iturbide,
project.
I'm sorry.
Scroll up, yeah, the other way.
No. So, this is Iturbide. So in this section of Iturbide, which is the one that already kind of has the bump outs in the parking, those are all were existing trees. Some of those existing trees, kind of like this shaded spot that you see up in here, the tree roots have bumped up the sidewalk, so there's a tripping hazard. So the direction we got was go in and repair those. So we're gonna go look at them in a little bit more detail, figure out how we're gonna repair them, but we've already kind of denoted the ones that we've seen in the field thus far. So that section was all.
The reason I'm saying, because I saw in San Antonio, a lot of the cities, they're doing basically not plant the pots, and you don't need a huge tree. You just need a tree to flower it up and put some shade. And that saves your sidewalk. And a lot of them, they're doing on that concrete pot, they're putting benches so people are sitting next to it. You have tree shade. Because every time we're planting tree in 10 years,
They're gonna
busting
grow.
the sidewalk and.
So you're saying as a pod would be like a tree planter,
Yes.
but just a very large pot?
Yeah, the concrete tree planters.
Yeah.
And you can put a drip irrigation system inside it.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of getting up, in my opinion, kind of getting up to this 30% level is denoting where we could do those.
Yeah.
What they are, whether they're in the ground or above ground or
Specking the
small,
right tree,
specking that.
the right grade
Between
around
30
the
to
tree.
100, right? But more from my perspective is specking where we.
This
could put-
time, we're not gonna plant trees that are gonna do that with the sidewalk, like, we
Yeah.
shouldn't make that mistake again.
So, the trees are really, going to be effective in bringing down that heat effect. And so it's important to think of these trees more than just decorative. The shade is really important. We have, heat gain on these, especially on the asphalt. So what we are trying to do is push the trees, closer to the street rather than away from the street, so that the heat, the canopies are free to grow, and it'll provide the shade that's needed to bring down the heat index down on those surfaces. It's really important to get the right tree planted in the right way. We might not be able to just have tree, little alleys where it's open and have other bushes around them. We may have to do tree grates or replace some of the areas on Iturbide with tree grates so that, you just can't tear out that stamped concrete and put more stamped concrete on top of it. So, but the trees that we have are very valuable from an economic point of view, and we have to really study this tree canopy and how effective it's gonna be to bring down those temperatures so that we can have greater use of the downtown during hotter months.
So in terms of design, it's not gonna kill you to get like a tree request here and there from the input from the board and the public, right? Generally, you're looking for all the other fixed elements, curb, sidewalk, bump
Right.
outs, right? For
So-
today's approval.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And the tree types are not there yet, but
Right. So
they're a
from the
very
board,
important element to this whole project.
from the design at this point, does the board have any input or any tweaks that would be requested, anything that you would want to notate? I mean, there's still time, right? We're gonna go through a public input process,
Yeah.
but I don't think much would change after that. But just for the board to leave that on the record today.
If traffic were to come in and say they'd like to remove some traffic lights in the area, will that impact you in your design, other than getting that obstacle out of the way?
It would improve, right? Because, so right now, we're working with the obstacles that are there. And so if is there an opportunity to remove a pedestrian pole or a traffic signal or something like that, then it would improve.
It's mostly traffic signal.
Mostly traffic signal.
And for, one of the interests that I would have is removing the meters, the parking meters to a kiosk.
Right.
Where we
That
put
would
it,
be-
yeah.
So I think we kind of mentioned that in one last meeting there's a way to maybe have a kiosk within every 2 blocks that somebody can get a ticket and put it on their windshield versus a parking meter, then that gives you much more flexibility as to where you can park. You're not just,
Can we add that in conceptual, Rick, like in the rendering, when you show the public, is to maybe show that? I know it's gonna pressure traffic, but I would like to see that. I think it makes sense than to be hitting that parking meter every 20, 30 feet.
What I'd like to see is the traffic study that was done by the parking study that was done by the city of Laredo recommended that there be a parking committee and that met a couple of times many years ago. But I would really like to see, parking is a major concern. It's a big problem. People are being targeted, and it's costly when there are many, 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 many reserved parking spaces in downtown Laredo that are provided, and then the people that are working down here have a problem. So I would really like to see, before the idea goes forward with what's gonna happen with the parking, that the stakeholders and the people that actually work and have businesses down here also get invited to that conversation.
Well, make sure to invite them to these events too, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess that was another comment on the events as well. As far as like the property owners that we need to contact, I don't know, I know we've spoke with Main Street, but I don't know if the city can help us with identifying some of those as well.
Yeah, and we can coordinate with Main Street to get a full list of all the property owners. We can, I think Ms. Martinez had mentioned flyers for these events, kind of do a door-to-door delivery system.
Yeah, I think door-to-door would probably be best.
Okay.
Yeah, these events are not easy to, I mean, they're even hard for me to attend.
So to the extent of these designs, are we comfortable to go ahead and authorize them to move ahead to the public meeting?
We gotta keep it going. I mean,
Yeah, let's go.
it's,
So, is there, I'll entertain a motion on this item. I guess to approve the 30% design as presented. Is there a motion? I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the drawings as presented today with any tweaking and future amendments to come back to the board from changes from this board or any other stakeholder that makes sense.
I second it.
Mr. Mia seconds. Any additional discussion?
I would like to thank the design team for meeting with the stakeholders and with the concerns. And so I hope that I know that can continue to happen. And I appreciate you all.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for that.
Can you add to your motion that we solidify those dates they gave us? And it's
Yes,
just-
we're gonna, actually, there's an item, the following item
Oh,
is on
sorry,
that.
okay.
So, been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. Item 8 is, relates to discussion with possible action related to the scheduling, committing dates and locations for the public awareness engagement events related to tourist number 1 improvement projects currently in design. So you mentioned some dates, November 30th and
Yeah,
December 1st.
and I don't know if the board feels like we can push those out, or we can add more dates, you know? It's just,
Dr. Uribe wants to comment after you, Rick, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask why those dates?
No, I'm actually gonna say, I think that the dates, I'm thinking about the strategy, right? Like, how, if we're gonna go door to door, we're gonna engage people. I think that we might need that week, exactly that week before the meeting, to actually go. If we keep the dates November 30th to the, or 1st, is the week of Thanksgiving. So
Exactly.
it's not gonna work. So what I'm thinking, and this is just a proposal, is that week we can do the door-to-door reach out, and then the next week, which is the 1st of December, like the first week of December officially.
5th,
And
5th through the 9th.
Exactly,
through the
second
9th.
week.
Yes, the second week, now we can do the meetings. And then
Totally
the other
agree.
thing that I was thinking is probably have the Zaragoza meetings, either at outlets. I think they have a space maybe that they can facilitate, or at the El Portal. Maybe CBB might be able to facilitate a room. So the people that are close to that area can easily walk to wherever the meeting is gonna be. And then on Iturbide, probably have it at one of the bar locations. So
I think that'd be perfect.
that's what I'm just thinking.
Okay. So would, if we push this a week, would December 7th and 8th would be the, you all are, Able City, are you all in
Yeah,
KCI okay with that?
December 8th probably doesn't work for us, but we could do it the 6th and the 7th, or I think that would be better for
I'm
us.
good the 6th and the 7th.
Dr. Uribe, the improvements, just the 2 blocks on Zaragoza, and it's just the one side of the street, so there's not that many, I mean, people would be affected, but the stakeholders, I'm not sure how many, you know, it's maybe 8 people.
Well, what I'm thinking is, like, even if you are not directly, like, it's not your property, people need to know how the whole street is gonna change, because that affects also how you move through the place.
Traffic.
So I think that inviting everybody would be better than just those property owners. I mean, in terms of community engagement.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And
So
Mr.
do we get
Chairman,
new
I
dates?
also think before we go to public, we need to show it to Councilwoman. And also maybe on November 28th, we can present to City Council, this is what we're doing. So, because they need to know that the TERS is doing something. I have a feeling they're thinking, man, there's nothing
Yeah.
going on.
Okay. November 28th is
like
the
it.
last meeting? Or-
Yeah, we can do as a staff presentation,
Okay, great.
have a quick presentation what we have.
Does that work for you all to be present?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will do a tentative, well, not tentative, we gotta vote on this.
Well,
Sixth,
so
sixth and
that-
seventh?
Yes.
That city council meeting is,
November 28th.
it's the Thanksgiving Monday, right?
Monday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and y'all can do that,
I'll be here.
okay.
Does that work for you, Edward?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to that effect? And are we okay with letting Dr. Odiva pick the locations that she thinks work best? I'm fine with that.
I'm okay, I think she's,
I'm good with that. Are you good with being the?
Yeah, I mean, we can reach out to
Okay.
those locations.
All right. All right. So I'll entertain a motion on this item.
so your motion is
No, will
for,
someone make the motion?
Oh.
Mr. Castillo, are you?
Yeah, motion to select the dates of December the 6th and 7th for the community, scheduling the meetings for the community. and staff presentation to city council on November the 28th.
I second that motion.
Would you include language that authorizes Laredo Main Street to determine locations?
Yes, that's amended.
Do you agree to that? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Use discussion, Mr. Mia?
And that council presentation will give us opportunity to invite people to show up
Okay.
on
Very
that
good.
date.
I agree. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None motion passes. The next item is presentation by Laredo Main Street on facade program options and discussion with possible action on any matters incident thereto. So like the last meeting, Dr. Uribe offered to bring back some information that the board could look at to start considering a facade type program. So Dr. Uribe, thank you for putting in the time and effort in first engaging this issue, but bringing back the information. I think you have you shared some documents with the board, but you have a presentation or?
Actually, I'm just gonna, so, I mean, of course, I cannot decide anything. This is to the board to decide something. So what I wanted to show you was the different type of programs and to have a little bit of an exercise of what you would consider in terms of developing a facade program and what would be some of the priorities that this board looks into developing this type of program. So first question would be like, how much money are you willing to commit to a program like this? And that is something that the board needs to look into the finances, because programs like this run every year, right? And then there are some of these programs are directly connected to the TERS, and they have monies from the TERS, and then there are other programs that are connected to other kinds of funding depending on the city. So that's one. So I have one example specifically about the TERS. Let me see if I can open this here. So City of Denton, and I don't know if you can, yes, you can see it. So City of Denton, actually, this is their TERS that has the facade program. So I wanted you to look specifically at this example because it gives you even the language of what they're using to approve this through their city council. So I wanted to bring this in particular so you can see exactly how the vote went and when they approve the program. And then, of course, they have the guidelines of what the money is going to be used for. And they do have 50% matching for this program. So that was one of the examples that I wanted to show you. The other example that I wanted to show you was the one on Harlingen, I think is the name.
That was Harlingen.
Yes, Harlingen. So this one I wanted to show you because there are very specific design proposals on this. So you want to decide, okay, so if we're gonna use this money, so in terms of aesthetics, how this money is gonna improve our downtown. So that's why I brought this example, because I thought, okay, maybe they can look at what they are doing in this other city and how they're using the money to actually make the city appeal or the design appeal to the buildings. So that's why I chose this example, and I thought, okay, maybe, for example, the canopies. This is one thing that we have been talking about, like this discussion of canopies. So in this way, they are some standards of how the canopies can be developed in the downtown area. So again, they have specific applications, and then you have the other list of several examples of many cities. and how their guidelines work in terms of these type of programs. So you can look, I mean, again, there's, for example, again, City of Denton, the church provides $200,000 every year with a max 50% or 50,000 for an impact of 3-year grant limit. So if you get a grant, you cannot apply until three years. So that's one thing. Georgetown, again, 50-50 matching, 20,000 max, and then they do residential, like facade grant funds for residential and mostly commercial buildings too. So, I mean, these were the examples that I just wanted to.
Was this attachment on what was shared? I hadn't seen this one.
The Word document?
Yeah, the Word document.
I think,
Okay.
I sent it out on.
yeah, it was.
I saw it.
Okay, then I missed it.
Yeah. So what I wanted to show was like the different type of programs that are available and how the cities use those programs to regulate some of the designs. And I think that, I mean, the idea is for you to have a conversation, I guess, in terms of what do you want this program to be for, how much money would be available, and then, I mean, in terms of developing of the guidelines, there are many different examples. There are, for example, guidelines for small amounts, just for example, the canopies. Well, the matching is max to $5,000 or max to $1,000. And then if they're doing bigger improvements, there are even some that are used for what is this called? The suppress systems, the fire suppress systems that are huge expense for anyone.
Fire sprinklers, the sprinkler system.
The sprinklers, yes. So different things. So that's why I just wanted to show you. And of course, you might need to make a decision. And I don't know if you want to have a second presentation, just like to I don't know.
Yeah, is there an interest to
Are there
form a committee on this
subcommittee?
to bring back a polished proposal? Or do y'all want to handle it as a board? I think we ought to have a facade program, even if we carve out from our existing. You know, I think maybe 50,000 is a lot, right? But you can do a lot with 15, believe it or not, you know.
Yeah.
And
We just have to make sure it works in conjunction with the historic landmark board, because anybody who does any kind of work in the downtown area, they have to present it to the historic board. So we just gotta make sure that it ties in together so that they're not doing one and then, you know.
That they approve it and then before we approve it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Ms. Romanowski, you want to comment?
Frank.
Ms. Frank.
It's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the original facade improvement grant that was for downtown, the funding was from HUD, but the application and all it's basic. So that already exists. And, you know, you just have to go through it and kind of, you know, line out whatever additional things that needed to be done for HUD. You can just line those things out. But that already exists, both the application and it goes through planning. And the guidelines are supposed to, the downtown, the historic guidelines exist. And that's what the landmark board follows.
That's right.
So as long as it's tied to that, and that, I guess the ordinance and the program exists, it just needs to be transferred to like the TERS. So that's all within the planning department.
And clean up, I guess, too, because of the issues, right? Like, this is what I've been hearing all along about this facade program. It was so convoluted and so difficult to actually meet the requirements,
Right.
that's why people wouldn't take advantage, or they ended up losing money trying to apply for this program. So I think that the goal might be making it accessible for people to actually be able to take advantage of this.
So we have options to either form a committee or deal with it as a board, or ask Able City to help with Main Street, bring back a proposal, what's the preference? At least those are options, just to keep things moving. And Rick's looking at me like, did you just add some more? Well, you don't have to do it while you're designing, but
Bebe, what was it that you said was the problem when you tried to apply? What were the issues?
Specifically, well, like she said, we lost money because we had to do an asbestos study and do all kinds of things.
Because HUD,
Because of
Right.
that was a HUD request.
HUD requirement.
And then what the specific, why we were denied, because you had to prove that you were either creating or keeping a job. And our building was empty, and so we did, yeah, I mean, we got creative and tried to figure out how to do that with the accountant, and we were denied. So
But a lot of the headaches was HUD stuff,
it was,
not,
yeah.
so I guess we could do it, we'll be able to do
But
it.
it's clear from Dr. Oliva's presentation that others, many other cities are doing this.
so if we give ourselves a goal to have some sort of proposed policy, say by the January meeting, right? So get through this whole, our next few weeks and working with the planning department, does that seem acceptable? Dr. Uribe, can you continue to be involved? Okay. And Rhonda, could you take that on? Or
Yeah, I'll put Laura in charge of trying to put something together, and we'll get Roxy to help out.
Where would the monies come?
We'll come back to this.
And so we have to decide, because Dr. Uribe did suggest that it could be an annual program, what kind of monies, and I asked Mr. Castillo, what kind of monies maybe that as a board we're thinking maybe, because this is a way to get the property owners involved and connected. Of course, it's already the property owners' money at work, and this would improve some of the buildings.
We're into the next fiscal year, so I
Right,
guess
next
the question.
fiscal year, yeah, I mean, collections are just started now. So the last time I saw the financials, we had over 900,000 in cash. That's just whatever has, the church has generated over the years.
Right.
So of that 900,000, there is about 180,000 that needs to be set up aside as a reserve. So the rest will be available.
Right. And so we're also gonna go through the bidding process. I would think by January, February, we should have all of that wrapped up.
We were gonna get 15.
But that will be from the bond proceeds.
Right, so bond proceeds, but if we're over budget,
Then we would need to
Right.
tap into the
I just want
revenues.
to mention something, Vivian and I were talking, I think just double check on the TERS organizational components or laws or whatever about.
bylaws.
Yeah, the bylaws regarding,
Private property.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, being able to use the money for private property improvements. So just make sure that that's,
That's a legal question.
yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that through Tina and the legal department. Okay. So I don't think we need action. We could take action just to, acknowledge that the planning department, Royal Main Street, and to some degree, Able City will help us will bring back a proposal by January or so. January?
I don't think an action.
Yeah, we don't need an action. We'll do it that way. All right, any other comments on this item?
I know that this is just for facade improvements, but was there a time when there was the purchase of facades? Like, could the tourists actually go out and buy the facades of these buildings? I thought there was such a thing. Was there at one time?
I never heard that.
What do you mean by the entire
Buy the
cost?
facade, the front.
From the
Take
property
ownership.
owner?
Yeah,
I've never seen that.
Take ownership.
and then maintain it.
Where did
maintain
you
the
see
coloring,
that, or are
everything.
you just thinking?
Maybe I dreamt of it, but.
I was gonna say, I'm trying the legality, that means a condo regime of some sort
Yeah, exactly.
inside that building.
Didn't they have that?
I'm never.
And the maintenance of that to, you know, to the turfs. I haven't
If you profit, I get,
Hey, you can take over my facade.
You're ahead of your time. All right, so, we'll bring that back. A discussion with possible action related to the proposed 2023 board meeting calendar. That's the last page, I believe, on the packet. Ms. Rodarte, you had some comments, right, on some dates that were not available. Did you want to announce that?
Yes, so you should be looking at, from July to December, we're looking at 2:30 PM meetings. That would be because on August, October, and December, council chambers is not available at 5:30. We could choose to take the meeting somewhere else to conference room number 1 or whatever else is available. Or we could keep it at 2:30 or change the date. We have those three options.
Can we put that? Is there any way we can put that?
It should be in the packet, yes.
I think the reasoning, this is before my time, but I think the reasoning for the 2:30 and 5:30 was both for public reasons, although we don't get a lot of public, but also to accommodate staff, right? That we don't keep you out during your workday or keep you late. So I don't have a preference. Either way works for me, but for the rest of you all.
Mr. Chairman, on February 7th, I guess I have to be, and probably Orly has to be in Austin for our legislative trip.
Yeah, and I'm probably.
And same thing, March, we probably will be in Washington DC.
And if it's the city trip, so probably
Yeah,
I will
city
be there
trips,
too.
Yes, sir. So maybe in the second week of February?
We could do a week later, which is February 14th or February 15th.
August, September, October.
Yeah.
What
I'm
is
sure
this?
Tina has to be
February
in Austin.
14th?
14th or 15th, whichever you guys prefer.
Camila, July, August, September, October, November, December are all at 2:30?
Yes.
And that, I see that accommodates the staff that's working, but I'm self-employed and I'm working, so, and I don't make a penny sitting here. So
wanna suggest
my
some
preference is, of course, after 5.
You want to suggest some dates?
Well, at least not 1,
So-
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in a row at 2:30.
So the August, October, and December meetings are meant to be at 5:30, but council chambers isn't available at 5:30.
well,
So we can either maybe go through to the next date.
Or just meet somewhere else?
Or meet like we did at the conference
I
room.
don't think
We used to meet at the El Metro, that was a nice conference room.
I think the only,
The recording.
we can coordinate where we can meet. I'll coordinate with city secretary's office,
Okay.
just to accommodate the size and everyone else that we have come in to the
The
meeting.
5:30 works for you all, for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'll go-
we can go back to those.
I mean, so, yeah, 2:30, 5:30, that worked, right?
So we'll do the August 8th meeting, the October 10th, and the December 12th meeting at 5:30, and we will be pending
Change
confirmation.
location, yeah. So let's go back to February. February would change to February 14th, correct? Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's the Valentine's Day.
I know.
I suggested
Actually,
I'm
the
available.
15th, just in case.
We'll have hearts.
Actually, February
Flowers.
14th is the second Tuesday of the month, not the 7th. The 7th is the first Tuesday.
Yes.
So it should be on the 14th. That's the scheduling, the second Tuesday of the month.
I went based on our current, the 2022 calendar that we have, and just went by what weeks we were meeting then.
Yeah, I think that our
We can do,
our
I mean,
schedule
and
is
we
the
can do the
second
14th.
Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so the next March,
March
would the 14th work for?
14th.
Yeah, that one's supposed to be the 14th.
April the 11th is the second Tuesday, May the 9th is the second Tuesday, June the 13th
Should be
is the
the
second
13th.
Tuesday.
June the 13th or the 6th?
Well, the 13th is the second
Is the second
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Does that work? 13? For me, that's getting way ahead of my calendar, but.
Yeah, it's like, I have no idea.
And we
July
can,
11th
we
is
can
the
make
second.
changes if needed, before we have.
Yeah,
the
that's,
meeting.
that's why it's easy when you do the second Tuesday of the month, then you know, even if you don't see the calendar, you know the second Tuesday of the month is the meeting. We're supposed to be.
November 14th is the.
So should we do that the second Tuesday, so
Well,
I
that's
can
what
put it on
she's
the
saying.
calendar?
I think that's a
Second
good
Tuesday.
way to think of, otherwise we get tripped up. So November 14th would change, November 7th would change to 14th. Everything else matches. December 12th is correct. So the changes, as we noted here, is February the 14th, March the 14th, June the 13th, November the 14th. Those are that would be our calendar.
Yeah, and if we could get some more 5:30s in there,
And
that
then
would.
get more, some
Yeah,
5:30s
August
in
becomes
there.
5:30, October becomes 5:30, and December becomes 5:30.
Yes.
And maybe December, we don't have a meeting next year. That we get all our business done in November and not come in December.
Yeah. Sounds like a good plan.
All right, and we still have so I'll make that motion to adopt the calendar with the changes announced previously.
Second.
Second by Mr. Castillo. Any additional discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. All right, the next item is relating to invoices from Able City and KCI. Discussion of possible action regarding invoices submitted by Able City and KCI as presented. Those were provided to you in the packet. They are based on work progress and some additional coordination work by Able City, but mostly it's on design work. I'll entertain a motion whenever the board's ready.
I move to approve as presented, Mr.
It's been
Chairman.
moved by Mr. Martinez to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Alexander seconds. Any additional discussion?
Discussion.
Go ahead,
I
Mr. Neal.
think next time, the invoice number 2, please send it to Ramon, so have Ramon approve it, so we can have Ramon already approve it.
Yes, and these will be, if approved by the board, we'll take them to Mr. Chavez for approval.
It should come
Yes.
other way. It should approve by Ramon first, because
Yes,
he's
and
overseeing it, and then
I
come to us.
believe it was sent to Mr. Chavez on
Yes.
Friday,
Okay.
right? Yes.
Yeah, so, and I'll take responsibility for that. I asked Edward to send them to me and Mr. Chavez at the same time. Usually Mr. Chavez is here, but I'll accept responsibility for that routing. But we'll get approval the next time and bring them to, then route them to team, or to community development.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None. None motion passes.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Navarro, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Castillo. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We are at 4:20. Thank you all very much for the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for the work getting us to this level of design. Thank you.